Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're gathered today on the 22nd of March, 2025, which happens to line up with the 11th of the first month on our Creator's calendar as we comprehend it. And we just went over a little bit of a portion of the Apostolic Constitutions not too long ago. We're going to have two videos up today, but we wanted to keep that separate. So this might be a little shorter than normal, but we're going to go ahead and go with it. We've been studying the book of Yobelim currently in our chronological read through of the scriptures, and we are currently at the part where the messenger of the presence is explaining to Moshe about how Yahuah was Baruch or blessing, Yitzchaq, the son of Abraham. Excuse me. I got the hiccups. The son of Abraham and the father of Jacob. So this is chapter 24, Yahuah Baruch Yitzchaq. Yitzchaq, as a name, it means hilarious laughter, to laugh. Both Sarah and Abraham had laughed when they were foretold to that they would have children in their old age. But it also means to mock or deride. And you can see the first use of that word to mocking when Yishmael was mocking Yitzchak when he was having his weaning party. But right here it says, "And it came to pass after the death of Abraham that Yahuah Baruch Yitzchak his son, and he arose from Hebron and went and dwelt at the well of the vision in the first year of the third week, 2073 Anno Mundi, of this Yobel, 7 years. And in the first year of the fourth week, a famine began in the land, 2080 AM, besides the first famine which had been in the days of Abraham. And Jacob sawed lentil porridge, and Esau came from the field hungry, and he said to Jacob his brother, Give me of this red pottage. And Jacob said to him, Sell to me pro miniature this birthright, and I will give you bread and also some of this lentil pottage. And Esau said in his heart, I shall die. Of what profit to me is this birthright? And he said to Jacob, I give it to you. And Jacob said, Swear to me this day. And he swore unto him. And Jacob gave his brother Esau bread and pottage, and he ate till he was satisfied, and Esau despised his birthright. For this reason was Esau's name called Edom, or Adam, which that word is the same as Adam, except you have a waw between the dalet and mem. So Adam, on account of the red pottage which Jacob gave him for his birthright. And Jacob became the elder, and Esau was brought down from his dignity. And the famine was over the land. And Yitzchak departed to go down into Egypt in the second year of this week, and went to the king of the Philistines to Gerar, unto Abimelech. And Yahuah appeared unto him. We know that whenever Yahuah appears unto a man, that is our Mashiach, because no man has seen the Father and lived. We've gone over that before too, and that's actually gone over in quite extensive detail in the first video about his passion, just who he is and how he appeared to men beforehand. So again, I highly recommend you check out that video, which will be in the description of the other one that we did today. This is, and Yahuah appeared unto him and said to him, Go not down into Mitzrayim, dwell in the land that I shall tell you of, and sojourn in this land, and I will be with you and barak you. For to you and to your seed will I give all this land, And I will establish my oath which I swore unto Abraham your father, and I will multiply your seed as the stars of Shamayim, and will give unto your seed all this land. And in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be Baruch, because your father obeyed my voice, and kept my charge, and my commandments, and my laws, and my ordinances, and my covenant, including the festival days that were enjoined to him, that he passed down to his children. And now obey my voice and dwell in this land. And he dwelt in Gerar 3 weeks of years. I don't know why there's an L there. It might be a typo. But just so you know, the phenomenon of changing L's and R's in a language is not uncommon. It has happened in a few places, especially in regards to the language changing into other languages. It says, and Abimelech charged concerning him, and concerning all that was his, saying, any man that shall touch him, or aught that is his, shall surely die. And Yitzchaq waxed strong among the Philistines, and he got many possessions, oxen, sheep, and camels, and donkeys, and a great household. And he sowed in the land of the Philistines, and brought in 100-fold. And Yitzchak became exceedingly great, and the Philistines envied him. Now all the wells which the servants of Abraham had dug during the life of Abraham, the Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham, and filled them with earth. And Abimelech, oh, excuse me, just for context, the Philistines, I was mistaken about where they had came from before, but as far as I'm aware, the Philistines, they say, are Egyptians, and they came from Egypt, but they're also pastoral peoples. And if you look into history, the Egyptians reviled shepherds. You can look at even in the Bible, they were abominable to them to have those animals, and for what reasons you can look at for yourselves, but they were antagonistic to that kind of thing. The Philistines themselves were not Egyptian by birth as related to them, but they were in that land. If you remember, right here, this section of Egypt, if you will, this part of the land of Africa on the western side of the Nile River was part of Shem's lot, and it was inhabited by Canaanites. They had all this area that actually was given to Abraham and his children, right? So when this land was inhabited by shepherd pastures, that was the pasture kings of um, the shepherd kings that came in and conquered Egypt for a while and then they were kicked out. Those were Canaanites, and they were the ones that came back into the land at the time of Abram and Lot when there was no more room for them together because they were started to dwell with more of them influxing when they were being pushed out of that area by Egypt. The Egyptians eventually conquered this area and annexed it from all these shepherd people and kicked them out. But that's for a different time. I just wanted to point out that was the remnants of who these Philistines are. They're Egyptians from that area that were plaguing the people. Now they also will say that they are a part of the sea peoples that came from the Mediterranean down, attacked Egypt, and then went north, but these were all related. If you remember, Canaan had his children take over the Levant. Eventually, they came into Turkey as well. They had what they know as the Hittite Empire at one point, but it wasn't all encompassing. So, this is now all. I had thought that they were only Greeks that had come down, but that was my mistake. It says, now all the wells which the servants of Abraham had dug during the life of Abraham, The Philistines had stopped them after the death of Abraham and filled them with earth. And Abimelech said to Yitzchaq, "Go from us, for you are much mightier than we." And Yitzchak departed there in the first year of the 7th week, and sojourned in the valleys of Gerar. And they digged again the wells of water, which the servants of Abraham his father had digged. And the Philistines had closed after the death of Abraham his father. And he called their names as Abraham his father had named them. And the servants of Yitzchak dug a well in the valley, and found living water. And the shepherds of Gerar strove with the shepherds of Yitzchak, saying, "The water is ours." And Yitzchak called the name of the well Perversity, because they had been perverse with him. And they dug a second well, and they strove for that also, and he called its name Enmity. And he arose from thence, and they digged another well, and for that they strove not. And he called the name of it Room. And Yitzchak said, Rahum. Rahum, like Ruach, is to be spacious. And it says, and Yitzchak said, "Now Yahuah has made room for us, and we have increased in the land." And he went up from there to the well of the oath in the first year of the first week, in the 44th Yobel, 2108 a.m. Now, that might seem kind of fantastic, but remember, this isn't so far-fetched, especially when you think about how the parable of creation plays out with the works that he did, the 22 works in 7 days, or in 6 days, I'm sorry. 7 works in the first day, all the things that Yahuwah interacted with men in that first 1,000 years, from Adam in the garden to Hanok being taken up into the Shamayim and translated and being no more in the earth. Okay, all of those works before the first 1,000 years were up, including the death of Adam and the judgment against Cain, right? All part of the light there. But then in the second day, whether you regard the 1,300-year marker of Yobelim here or the 1600s marker in the Masoretic text, it's still in the second day you have the flood, and that is the only work that he did in that day. Then you go into the 2000s here, and it was after this time where he made the covenant with Abram. And now you have it continuing, this covenant working with Yitzchak and then Yaakov. But I want to point out it is literally in the second day, or after the second day, the only work being done. It's in the third day that he's doing this. And it says, and Yahuwah appeared to him that night on the new month of the first month, and which is an appointed time, something that is consistent throughout this book at the very least, if not throughout scripture, that he appears and he does these things on his appointed times. And said to him, "I am Yahuwah the Almighty of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you, and shall barak you, and shall surely multiply your seed as the sand of the earth, for the sake of Abraham my servant." And he built an altar there, which Abraham his father had first built, and he called upon the name of Yahuwah, and he offered sacrifice to the Almighty of Abraham his father. And they digged a well, and they found living water. And the servants of Yitzchak digged another well, and did not find water. And they went and told Yitzchak that they had found no water. And Yitzchak said, "I have sworn this day to the Philistines, and this thing has been announced to us." So, just for context, the swearing is an account that you're going to read in just a moment. But he's acknowledging that he made an oath He had to make a swear with these people, and then he has no water from the well that his servants had dug. So he's acknowledging the reality of what went on there. There is a spiritual thing that we can think about, but we'll move on for here. And here's the account. And he called the name of the place, or of that place, the Well of the Oath, or Beersheba. For there he had sworn to Abimelech and Ah- Az- Ahuzath, his friend, and Pichol the perfect, or his host. So the captain of his host, right? And Yitzchaq knew that day that under constraint he had sworn to them to make shalom with them. So it was not a compact or a contract with full disclosure and mutual agreement without coercion. Or in contract law, that would have been under duress, which makes it void from enactment. Right? And Yitzchak on that day cursed the Philistines and said, Cursed be the Philistines unto the day of wrath and indignation from the midst of all nations. And may Yahuah make them a derision and a curse and an object of wrath and indignation in the hands of the sinners, the Gentiles, and in the hands of the Kittim. So the Gentiles, if you take that for what it means, like in Revelation, or what the Gentile nations that are rising up against Yerushalayim, that would be all the Islamic nations that were attacking them after they were put back in the land. Whether or not that's what's meant by the Gentiles here, we know that the Kittim is Rome. But we also know that when we curse others, if we do the same things that they do, we suffer the same things that we curse them in. Just like the children, when they were brought into the land by Yahushua the son of Nun, as we will read, they were the instruments of the judgment of the wrath of Elohim against the nations of the Canaanim that were there. And when they practiced the like things that those Canaanites were doing, they likewise faced that same judgment by others. So they were not escaping the very thing they were doing. But this is talking about what would happen to the Philistines, who were literally swept up by the Gentiles, the different Gentile kingdoms that were attacking the area, and eventually completely destroyed by Rome when they came. And whoever escapes the sword of the enemy and the Kittim, which is Rome, may the righteous nation root out in judgment from under Shamayim, the righteous nation which will supersede the fourth kingdom and not yield its sovereignty to another. So you see, even our forefather Yitzchak knew the truth better than many of us today. For they shall be the enemies and foes of my children throughout their generations upon the earth, and no remnant shall be left to them, nor one that shall be delivered on the day of the wrath of judgment. For destruction and rooting out and expulsion from the earth is the whole seed of the Philistines reserved, and there shall no longer be left for these Caphorim or Caphtorim a name or a seed on the earth. Caphtor is an island that they came from too. But the Karati and Parati, the Parathites and the Karathites are two groups of people who end up serving Dawid as well. It's something to look into. It might be the same relation to that one. I'm not exactly sure. Excuse me. And this is against the eagle, the one that thinks they can fly high, the right here. For though he shall ascend unto Shamayim, there shall he be brought down. And though he make himself strong on earth, there shall he be dragged forth. And though he hide himself amongst the nations, even from there shall he be rooted out. And though he descend into Sheol, there also shall his condemnation be great, and there also he shall have no shalom, because there is no shalom or rest for the wicked. And if he go into captivity by the hands of those that seek his life, shall they slay him on the way, and neither name nor seed shall be left to him on all the earth, for into eternal malediction shall he depart. And thus is it written and engraved concerning him on the Shamayim tablets, to do to him on the day of judgment, so that he may be rooted out of the earth. Now, there's allusions like that where you have literal peoples, the Philistines in this instance, and then the prophetical larger application to the overseer of the Roman uh, assembly there, and the king of that little country. But you see these parables over and over in different ways. He's related to the Philistines by what the Philistines were choosing to do. They're taking territory not theirs, usurping and mixing things with the truth, and being a plague or a thorn in the side of his people. It was like the Edomites and how Edom was born in the womb with Yaakov and then rose up against him to persecute him. Is equated to the Assyrian. There was the literal Assyrians who destroyed or conquered the northern kingdom, and the things that they would do as a people was a type and picture of what was fulfilled larger scale by Rome. And you see that again equated with Bashan and Carmel and the Kittim and other foretellings in Scripture, where the foretellers in the Dead Sea Scrolls, what's called the interpretations or the Peshars, will take foretellings of things that literally happened with the people that were specifically mentioned plainly, but the larger scale fulfillment was Rome later on. And it's because they fulfill that characteristic or that aspect of their being. For Syria, it was the torture, like the Inquisitions that would happen. For the Philistines, it was like the plundering we just mentioned, like the giants in the land there against the people. Excuse me. And you have other examples as well. Bashan, the literal people of Bashan, where Og was when Moshe brought them into the land and they fought against him, right? But Bashan and Carmel are related to the Kittim and the leader of the Kittim, respectively. When you look at the meanings of these names in the Hebrew, Bashan is it's it means shameful. It's the root for shame. It's the same word, if you guys remember, where you get the word for a female dog in English. It comes from being shameful. But anyways, it says, for though I reread that part, I'm sorry. It says, and thus it is written and engraved concerning him on the Shamayim tablet to do to him on the day of judgment, so that he may be rooted out of the earth. And you see another foretelling of this in the animal apocalypse, what's going to happen to those that are judged. Although I don't know if the anti-Mashiach himself is mentioned there, but in the apocryphal writings of Baruch with the forest, the fountain, and the vine, and then you have in Ezra's foretellings, it goes into more detail about what's going to happen here. Chapter 25, Rebekah instructs Yaakov her son. And in the second year of this week, in this Yobel, Rebekah called Yaakov her son and spoke to him 2109 Anno Mundi, saying, my son, do not take you a wife of the daughters of Canaan, as Esau your brother, who took him two wives of the daughters of Canaan, and they have embittered my inner being with all their unclean deeds, for all their deeds are fornication and lust, and there is no righteousness with them, for their deeds are evil. And I, my son, love you exceedingly, and my heart and my affection barak you every hour of the day and watch of the night. Hour of the day, 12 hours in the day, and the watch of the night, there's four watches of the night. There's, as far as I'm aware, never mentioned any hours of the night because you can't track them with the sundial, which gives you the hours. And this is how scripture defines these times. It has no concept of a 24-hour period of 60 minutes exactly. Excuse me. And now, my son, hearken to my voice and do the will of your mother, and do not take you a wife of the daughters of this land, but only of the house of my father and of my father's kindred. You shall take you a wife of the house of my father, and the Most High Yahuah will barak you, and your children shall be a righteous generation and a Kodesh seed. And then spoke Jacob to Rebekah, or Ribkah, his mother, and said to her, Behold, and here, this is the witness that we have of Jacob. And this is where it says, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated. We've covered that before. Someone was asking a question not too long ago about it, and I shared with them where we went over the things about Edom because they were curious, why was Edom hated? But this is why. From his heart, he had an evil disposition against his brother. And this is the disposition that Jacob has, okay? I'm sorry. It's not just right here, but when he witnesses to her later on about how he's felt about his brother, you get to see his heart and how he actually regards every man in his interactions. Doesn't mean he's perfect, right? No man is free from sin, but his disposition, his simplicity in how he regards men and trying to be like his forefather Abraham was enjoining, that was what was pleasing to our Maker, and that's what he loved about him. It says, then spoke Jacob to Rebekah his mother, and said to her, Behold, mother, I am 9 weeks of years old, and neither know nor have I touched any woman, nor have I betrothed myself to any, nor even think of taking me a wife of the daughters of Canaan, as opposed to being about lust and fornication all the time. Okay. For I remember, mother, the words of Abraham our father, for he commanded me not to take a wife of the daughters of Canaan, but to take me a wife from the seed of my father's house and from my kindred. I have heard before that daughters have been born to Laban your brother, and I have set my heart on them to take a wife from amongst them. And for this reason I have guarded myself in my ruach against sinning or being corrupted in all my ways throughout all the days of my life. For with regard to lust and fornication, Abraham my father gave me many commands. And despite all that he has commanded me, these 22 years, my brother has striven with me and spoken frequently to me and said, My brother, take to wife a sister of my two wives. But I refuse to do as he has done. I swear before you, mother, that all the days of my life I will not take me a wife from the daughters of the seed of Canaan, and I will not act wickedly as my brother has done. Fear not, mother. Be assured that I shall do your will and walk in uprightness, and not corrupt my ways forever. And thereupon she lifted up her face to Shamayim and extended her fingers of her hands. That's another one where you can see that phenomenon. It's also explicitly mentioned in the Testament of Louis, if you remember, not in the Greek version. I don't believe it's in that one, but in the Aramaic or the version that was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls, that's a fuller version. What we have in the Greek is more of an abridged copy, just like the versions of the Book of Hanok that we have is an abridgement of the original. There's things that are missing. But anyways, in the full one that you can find in the Dead Sea Scrolls, he mentions lifting up his hands as well in a certain way when he was praying. It says, and he opened her, or she, and opened her mouth, and Baruch the Most High Yahuah, who had created the Shamayim and the earth, and she gave him thanks and praise. And she said, Baruch be Yahuah Elohim, and may his Kodesh name be Baruch Leolam Waed, or forever and ever, who has given me Yaakov as a pure son and a Kodesh seed. For he is yours, and yours shall his seed be continually, and throughout all the generations forevermore. Barak him, Yahuah, and place in my mouth the barakah of righteousness, that I may barak him. And at that hour, when the ruach of righteousness descended into her mouth, she placed both her hands on the head of Yaakov and said, Baruch, or blessed are you, Yahuah of righteousness and King of the ages. And may he barak you beyond all the generations of men. May he give you, my son, the path of righteousness, and reveal righteousness to your seed. And may he make your sons many during your life, and may they arise according to the number of the months of the year. And may, like the constellations, or like the stars of the Shamayim. Okay, that was the picture there. And may their sons become many and great beyond the stars of Shamayim. There you go, like the constellations. And this is also typified in our Mashiach being like the sun, the Malkuth Shamayim, or the Shamayim Yerushalayim, the mother of us all, being like the moon, which is related or tied to the kingdom that was given to the seed of Dawid. And then you have the stars, the children of light running the course set before them, which was the assemblies being built there. But it was the same picture here. And in the recognitions of Clement, Kepha, I believe it's in book 8, he directly says that our Mashiach is the year of Yahuwah's favor, and we, his emissaries, are his 12 months, or the constellations. And he says, and their numbers be more than the sand of the sea, which is another type of his children. And we've gone over that before, just to rehash that. And you can do this with all of these things. You just look at what the scriptures say about this topic. Who are the stars of Shamayim? Where is it mentioned and how is it used? Who is the sand of the sea? Where is it mentioned and how are they used? And then you think about what this stuff is. The sand is the border of the wet, the place that's death if you drink it, and the dry land where men are inhabited, where all men dry out, it says in the apostolic constitutions. Some of them are trampled upon, some of them are in the water, some of them are out of the water, but it is the sand of the sea. It is the place where that separation is made. And then the stars of Shamayim are like the lights in the dark that go along with the moon in conjunction with ruling the night, that run the course set before them without deviation or fail. Men have used to navigate the seas. I, you can't make this stuff up. You just look at what is, and you look at what his word says about it, and you can see how amazing the truth is. So I encourage you guys to do that on your own. And not just with this, but everywhere that he gives you these things to think about. It says, and may he give them this goodly land as he said he would give it to Abraham and to his seed after him always, and may they hold it as a possession forever. And may I see unto you, my son, Baruch children during my life, and a Baruch and Kodesh seed may all your seed be. And as you have refreshed your mother's ruach during her life, the womb of her that bare you blesses or barak you thus, and my breasts barak you, and my mouth and my tongue praise you greatly. Increase and spread over. Now my breast barak you, meaning that she's nourished and blessed him with the fruit of the womb, right? What the food that was she was able to provide in his youth. It's like the breasts of the, it talks about the breasts of the father in the odes of Shalomo, which weren't written by him, but how the Ruach opens them up and nurses everyone. And it seems like a blasphemous, evil thing to think about, but it's nothing of the sort. There's no grotesque physical thing here. It's the substance and the natural affections that a woman can provide to her young child. In that way, the Father provides for all his creation. That's what's trying to be spoken of there. And this is how she says that her breasts bless him, and her mouth and her tongue praise you greatly in the thing that she just said, right? Increase and spread over the earth, and may your seed be perfect in the joy of Shamayim and earth forever. And may your seed rejoice, and on the great day of Shalom, may it have Shalom. And may your name and your seed endure to all the ages, and may the Most High Yahuah be their Elohim, and may the Elohim of righteousness dwell with them, and by them may his sanctuary be built unto all the ages. Baruch be he that barak you, and all flesh that curses you falsely, may it be cursed. And she kissed him and said to him, may Yahuah of the world love you as the heart of your mother, and her affection rejoice in you, and barak you. And she ceased from baraking or blessing. All right. So we're on chapter 26 now. This is Yitzchaq called Esau, his elder son, to make savory meat. Remember, all of these things have foretelling to them. Some of it might be inverted in its actual application, where there's a positive in one way, it's negative later on. Where there was one involved, it was really more. Uh, we've gone over this before. These inversions are seen all over the place. It usually pins on when our Mashiach came. But here's an example. Dawid died on the seventh day. Our Mashiach rose on the seventh day. It was the inversion of the one to the other. You have, uh, on a larger scale, if you will, when the children were brought out of Egypt and they came and then they were in the land all ruling with judges, and then they asked for a king over them, and then that was taken out. They were taken out of the land, came back with governors until the coming of our Mashiach. And then that was kind of turned into a monarchy right before he came again. Well, afterwards, they were dispersed into those same monarchies, and it's been going in reverse, where you have captivity, monarchy, and then liberation into a different non-monarchical governments, where it's like the time of judges, leading into a captivity again, then coming back to his return. So it's going backwards in a way, but it's kind of inverted. There's many of those, but we're not going to cover that right now. If you guys happen to think of any more, don't hesitate to say this or to point it out, though. But it says, and in the seventh year of this week, Yitzchak called Esau, his elder son, and said to him, I am old, my son, and behold, my eyes are dim in seeing, and I know not the day of my death. Now, he wasn't going blind for any fault necessarily of his own, but for the purpose of foretelling that in the later part of the time of their dwelling in the land, their being able to see clearly would be impaired, right? And you guys can think about some of how these other things play out. And now take your hunting weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt and catch me, my son, and make me savory meat, such as my inner being loves, and bring it to me that I may eat, and that my inner being may barak you before I die. But Rebekah heard Yitzchak speaking to Esau. And Esau went forth early to the field to hunt and catch and bring home to his father. And Rebekah called Jacob, her son, and said to him, Behold, I heard Yitzchak your father speak to Esau your brother, saying, Hunt for me, and make me savory meat, and bring it to me that I may eat and barak you before Yahuah, before I die. And now, my son, obey my voice in that which I command you. Go to your flock, and fetch me 2 good kids of the goats, and I will make them savory meat for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father, that he may eat and barak you before Yahuah, before he die, and that you may be Baruch. And Jacob said to Rebekah, or Ribkah his mother, Mother, I shall not withhold anything from my father would eat, or which my father would eat, and which would please him, only I fear my mother, that he will recognize my voice and wish to touch me. And you know that I am smooth, and Esau my brother is hairy, and I shall appear before his eyes as an evildoer, and shall do a deed which he may not command me. And he will be wroth with me, and I shall bring upon him, or bring upon myself, a curse and not a barakah. And Rebekah his mother said to him, Upon me be your curse, my son, only obey my voice. And Jacob obeyed the voice of Rebekah his mother, and went and fetched 2 good and fat kids of the goats, and brought them to his mother. And his mother made them savory meat, such as he loved. And Rebekah took the goodly remnant of Esau her elder son, which was with her in the house, and she clothed Jacob her younger son with them. And she put the skins of the kids upon his hands and on the exposed parts of his neck. And she gave the meat and the bread which she had prepared to the hand of her son Jacob. And Jacob went in to his father and said, I am your son. I have done according as you bade me. Arise and sit and eat of that which I have caught, Father, that your inner being may barak me. And Yitzchak said to his son, Have you found so quickly, my son? And Jacob said, Because Yahuah your Elohim caused me to find. And Yitzchak said to him, Come near that I may feel you, my son, if you are my son Esau or not. And Jacob went near to Yitzchak his father, and he felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. I want you to pay attention to that. In his old age and not being able to see clearly, when Jacob, he hears Jacob's voice, but the hands or the works are like the hands of Esau. And he discerned him not, because it was a dispensation from Shamayim to remove his power of perception. And Yitzchak discerned him not, or discerned not rather, for his hands were hairy as his brother Esau's, so that he barak him. And he said, Are you my son Esau? And he said, I am your son. And he said, Bring near to me that I may eat of that which you have caught, my son, that my inner being may barak you. And he brought near to him, and he did eat. And he brought him wine, and he drank. So meat and drink, to eat and rejoice and be glad, which is what Ecclesiastes mentions, or Kohelet says is what is given for all men to do and rejoice in their life. But remember, when you're not supposed to be rejoicing, like when you fast, you abstain from meat and wine. And Yitzchaq his father said to him, Come near and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and he baruched him and said, Behold, the smell of my son is the smell of a full field which Yahuah has baruched. And may Yahuah give you of the dew of Shamayim, and of the dew of the earth, and plenty of corn and oil. Let nations serve you, and peoples bow down to you. Be ruler over your brethren, and let your mother's sons bow down to you. And may all the birachot, or blessings, wherewith Yahuah has baruched me, and baruched Abraham my father, be imparted to you, and to your seed forever. Cursed be he that curses you, and baruch be he that barach, or blesses you. And it came to pass, as soon as Yitzchak had made an end of baraching his son Yaakov, and Yaakov had gone forth from Yitzchak his father, he hid himself, and Esau, his brother, came in from his hunting. And he also made savory meat, and brought it to his father, and said to his father, Let my father arise, and eat of my venison, that your inner being may barak me. And Yitzchak his father said to him, Who are you? And he said to him, I am your firstborn, my son, or your son Esau. I have done as you commanded me. And Yitzchak was very greatly astonished, and said, Who is he that has hunted, and caught, and brought it to me? And I have eaten of all before you came, and have baruch him. He shall be baruch, and all his seed forever. So he passed a baraka onto him that he cannot relinquish, because you cannot curse who's been blessed. That's established from the beginning. Right? Now, this was contrived, and it was done in such a way that was foreknown and ordained. I'm not saying it was all approved of, but these things happen for a purpose to teach us. We got to be careful. If you bless someone and then you turn around and curse them, you are cursing yourself, because you can't give a baraka to someone, or a curse to someone who's been blessed, right? These are things, you might call it superstition if you didn't know better, but we can get tripped up by the words of our mouth very easily. And if you take his words seriously, like your soul depends on it, and you read these things like it's a life and death thing, you'll see that what you say, the things you choose to have come out of your mouth, has a very, very meaningful impact in your life and your well-being. So it's something to be considerate of. It says, And it came to pass, when Esau heard the words of his father Yitzchak, that he cried with an exceeding great and bitter cry, and said to his father, Barak me, me also, father. And he said to him, Your brother came with guile, and has taken away your baraka. And he said, Now I know why his name is named Yaakov. Behold, he has supplanted me. That Akob is supplanter, they say, and that's one of the means. It's to catch by the heel. Okay. It says, He's supplanted me these two times. He took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my baraka. And he said, Have you not reserved a baraka for me, father? And Yitzchak answered and said to Esau, Behold, I have made him your ruler, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants. And with plenty of corn and wine and oil have I strengthened him. And what now shall I do for you, my son? And Esau said to Yitzchak his father, Have you but one baraka, father? Bless me, even me also, father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Yitzchaq answered and said to him, Behold, far from the dew of the earth shall be your dwelling. Now, the waters that come up on the earth, right? Like the waters that come down from above. It says, and far from the dew of Shamayim from above. And by your sword you will live, and you will serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when you become great, and do shake his yoke from off your neck, you shall sin a complete sin unto death, and your seed shall be rooted out from under Shamayim, both literally in his person and foretelling things that would happen to Rome. Okay. And Esau kept threatening Yaakov because of the Baraka wherewith his father Baruch him, and he said in his heart, May the days of the mourning of my father now come, so that I may slay my brother Yaakov. All right, 27. Sorry about that. And it says, Rebekah, or Ribkah, calls Yaakov and sends him to Laban. Laban being her brother. And this word Laban, like Lebanon, it means white in Hebrew. They were white trees, the tall white cedar trees, or Lebanus, the trees of Lebanon, because not all trees are that color. Right? And it says, In the words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah in a dream. And Ribkah sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, Behold, Esau, your brother, will take vengeance on you so as to kill you. Now, therefore, my son, obey my voice, and arise and flee you to Laban, my brother, to Haran, to Haran, and tarry with him a few days until your brother's anger turns away, and he remove his anger from you and forget all that you have done. Then I will send and fetch you from there. And Jacob said, I am not afraid. If he desires to kill me, I will kill him. But she said unto him, Let me not be bereft of both my sons on one day, meaning the one that dies and the one who killed, like Cain and Abel, right? And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, you know that my father has become old, and does not see, because his eyes are dull. And if I leave him, it will be evil in his eyes, because I leave him and go away from you. And my father will be angry and will curse me, and I will not go. When he sends me, then only will I go. So notice that he's now made resolve. He's changed his ways a little bit. The first time he said, I can't do that to my dad. And then she said, just obey my voice, let your curse be on me. But this time he's like, look, I'm not going to go unless he sends me, because he doesn't want to do anything deceptive or anything that would be seen as evil in the eyes of his father. Oh, excuse me, didn't mean to do that. And Rebekah said to Yaakov, I will go in and speak to him, and he will send you away. And Rebekah went in and said to Yitzchaq, I loathe my life because of the two daughters of Heth, whom Esau has taken him as wives. And if Jacob take a wife from among the daughters of the land, such as these, of what purpose do I further live? For the daughters of Canaan are evil. And Yitzchak called Jacob and Baruch him and admonished him and said to him, Do not take you a wife of any of the daughters of Canaan. Arise and go to Mesopotamia, to the house of Bethuel, the house of El, right? For, or your mother's father, and take you a wife from thence of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And Yahuah Elohim barak you and increase and multiply you, that you may become a company of nations, a federation of nations like the 12 tribes, right? And give you the barakah of my father Abraham to you and to your seed after you, that you may inherit the land of your sojournings and all the land which Yahuah gave to Abraham. Go, my son, in Shalom. And Yitzchaq sent Yaakov away, and he went to Mesopotamia, to Laban the son of Bethuel the Syrian, the brother of Rebekah, Yaakov's mother. And it came to pass after Yaakov had arisen to go to Mesopotamia, that the ruach of Rebekah was grieved after her son, and she wept. You can see an echo of that in 4th Ezra with Yarushalayim in the figure of a woman weeping over the death of her son. And then you can also see it in a echo in the book. It's an apocryphal book called Tobit or Tobiyahu. And when he's long in returning, the son is long in returning to his parents. His mother also is out mourning and grieving for him. And Yitzchak said to Rebekah, my sister, weep not on account of Yaakov, my son, for he goes in shalom, and in shalom will he return, which is the comfort that Tobiyahu tries to give his wife as well. The Most High Yahuah will preserve him from all evil, and will be with him, for he will not forsake him all his days. For I know that his ways will be prospered in all things wherever he goes, until he return in shalom to us, and we see him in shalom. Fear not on his account, my sister, for he is on the upright path, and he is a perfect man, and he is trustworthy, and will not perish. Weep not. And Yitzchak comforted Rebekah on account of her son Yaakov, and Baruch him. And Yaakov went from the well of the oath, or Beersheba, to go to Haran on the 1st year of the 2nd week in the 44th Yobel. And he came to Luz on the mountains, that is Bethel, on the new month of the 1st month of this week. So the Chodesh of the 1st month is when he went to Bethel and had the vision. Again, that's an appointed time. 21:15 a.m. And he came to the place that even, or at evening rather, and turned from the way to the west of the road that night. And he slept there, for the sun had set. And here's indications that a day ends at evening and then there is night, just like we can read in the plain scriptures as well. And he took one of the stones of that place and laid under the tree, and he was journeying alone, and he slept. And he dreamt that night, and behold, a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to Shamayim. And behold, the Melachim of Yahuah ascended and descended on it, and behold, Yahuah stood upon it. This would be our Mashiach, because no man has seen the Father, and he's the one that appears to his foretellers in dreams and visions. And he, our Mashiach, is the one who appeared to Moshe face to face, as a man speaks to his friend, different than how he appears to the foretellers. And he spoke to Jacob and said, I am Yahuah Elohim of Abraham, your father, and the Elohim of Yitzchaq. The land whereon you are sleeping, to you will I give it, and to your seed after you. And your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall increase to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and in you and in your seed shall all the families of the nations be Baruch. And behold, I will be with you, and will keep you wheresoever you go, and I will bring you again into this land in Shalom, for I will not leave you until I do everything that I told you of. And that's a great foretelling and promises for our benefit, because while he's here, he said we would go to the north and to the west and to the east and to the south, all over. And in the order that he mentioned, that's the order of the dispersions of the children generally in different places through history during this era of the three ages of his doctrine being in the world, if you will. That was that parable of the kingdom of the Shamayim being like a woman who hid leaven in three measures until all was leavened. That was typified in the walk of Abraham, Yitzchaq, and Yaakov here, and fulfilled in the parable of how that played out. Their sojournings before going into the land, their time of covenant promise in the land, and his laboring for his children out of the land before their return. And Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, truly, this place is the house of Yahuah, and I knew it not. And he was afraid and said, dreadful is this place, which is none other than the house of Yahuah, and this is the gate of Shamayim. And Jacob wrote, notice that he has a vision, he thinks things, but what he's thinking is not true. He's not immediately corrected for it. He believes in this presumption for quite a long time while he's out and about laboring and doing his things, purposeful for the kingdom, but in ignorance to the truth, a type of things that his children would walk out in this era, if you can see it. And Jacob arose early in the morning and took the stone which he had put under his head and set it up as a pillar for a sign. And he poured oil upon it, or upon the top of it, and he called the name of that place Bethel, but the name of the place was Luz at the first. And this is literally the house of El, without the Wah in the middle. And Yaakov vowed a vow unto Yahuah, saying, if Yahuah will be with me, and will keep me in this way that I go, and give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, don't worry about what you're eating or what you'll drink, for your Father knows that you need these things, right? If you will be with me in the way that I will go, and give me bread to eat and raiment to put on, so that I come again to my Father's house in Shalom, then shall Yahuah be my Elohim, and this stone which I have set up as a pillar for a sign in this place shall be Yahuah's house. And of all that you give me, I shall give the tenth to you, my Elohim. Now that stone, while it was at the head here, later came at the feet. And it was literally when it came out of Egypt, with Daniel the prince, who was of the righteous remnant of the Hebrews that did not mix with the Egyptians. They brought the marble stone, or Jacob's pillow and the marble chair out of Egypt with them, but it was used as his footstool at that time. In the course of time, it was taken by Edward the Longshanks, and it was put from being a footstool to in the seat of the throne of the monarch of England, to which it is still there to this day in Westminster Abbey, and every monarch of the line of Dawid that is crowned in that country sits on that throne. But that's a different story for another time. All right, this 12:07. I don't know if you guys want to keep going or not. Let me check real quick. All right, so this seems to be the right place for us to stop for today, and then we will continue next week with Jacob's labors and exploits outside of the land to gain for himself, his wives, and possessions. Thank you. Sorry about that. Please try to keep in mind what these things are foretelling for us. If you have any inklings, or you can share, more importantly, if you can share with simple parts of his word to put these things together, where like Hagar is called the first covenant. Ishmael would be her son, the first covenant believers, or what came from that. Those that hear, believe, and do, but are like the wild donkey man, their hand against every man, and every man's hand against them. Right? It's a type and picture. These things can be shown pretty plainly from there. If you can find other things in Scripture that allude to these events that you can see here and how they play out and are applicable to the time of our Mashiach, when Kepha mentions in the recognitions of Clement that his first advent was most like and representative of the works of Moshe and Yaakov. Moshe, because he's like one unto Moshe in all things, came as an Elohim and servant of the Almighty, right? And then as Yaakov, because he came to go labor for his possessions and his wives, if you will, outside of the land, with the Besorah being taken out to the world. So that is the type and picture that we haven't alluded to. And I didn't mean to just give it away, but if you can find any more like that, please do. Thank you all for your time. You have a wonderful Shabbat, a great Shavua Tov, and we will speak to you next time. Shalom.